how many sounds does a language need in order to express all the different words that it has? I mean, you're going to need more than 2 or 3, because then if you only have 2 or 3 sounds to choose from, you'd have to make your words really, really long in order to make different words. Like, hey, like, you know, if dog is ba ba ba, and then cat is like ba 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 ba, and then like, you know, horse is ba 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 ga, you know, like you're really already running out of possible ways to make different words. You need those different letters, those different phonemes, different sounds to actually make different words. You know, if you actually had 100,000 different sounds, then you could literally have just one sound per word. Like you have like, you know, dog is bzz, bzz, and then like horse is glub, or, you know, or whatever. That obviously that would run into its own problems. Even we could see with the extreme of the Ko language that, you know, with over 150 different sounds, that already is quite extreme. But now we're going to look at the lower end. What is the minimum number of sounds that a language needs in order to get the job done? Of what do sounds do? They express the difference. They identify different words. You change the sound and you get a different word. Like you could say cat, or you could say hat, and those are different words. And the only difference is the difference between the phoneme k and the phoneme h, or the k, a k sound and an h sound. So we need those phonemes, but what is the minimum? What is the simplest you could go? So here we go. Let's take a look back at Foible here, our inventory, or our database of phoneme inventories. So we can again look at this inventory, this list of, we have 3,000 different documents, but it is more like 2,000 languages because some are repeated. And now we can sort. It doesn't let us sort by number of segments for some reason, but instead we can search by, well, let's take a look at vowels first. It brings you surprisingly that there's a couple of languages. There's 3 languages here that have only 2 vowels. And that really is extreme, because you can see like there's a very large number of languages that has 3. Look at all those 3. 3 is a very popular number of vowels. You know, it keeps going down to the next page. Like there's so many languages that have only 3 vowels. You know, and typically it would be something like a, I, u. It does seem like a very simple inventory from the point of view of English, which has at least 10 vowels. But many vowels, 3 is enough. Now you can see for these 2, though, taking it to a further extreme, 2 of those languages actually have 3 tones. So even if they have only something like a and e, well, maybe they have like a and e, like 3 tones for each of those 2 vowels. And that would give them effectively 6 different contrasts, 6 different vowels to work with if you include those different tones. So this Chuvok language here has to take the prize for the fewest number of vowels. Just 2 vowels and no tones to divide them up further. Although you can see that these languages do have a fair number of consonants. So these are not being that minimal at all. Like they have a pretty good range of different sounds that they can make. So just because there's typically more consonants involved than vowels, this is the column where we can really get a good sort of, let's go right to the bottom. So here we go. The very smallest number is 6 consonants. And this language has 5 vowels, leading to a remarkable number of 11 different phonemes. And this prize is actually, so this is the language Rotokas, and this prize is actually shared because there's another language called Piraha that has 8 consonants, but it has only 3 vowels. So that leads to the total of 11. You can see it repeated here. There's another inventory of the same language, Piraha, that comes up with the same count. See, there's a couple maybe close. So here it's like Nasioi that has 13. Hawaiian. Hawaiian is probably the most well-known of the languages to have such a small number. I mean, we can see that there's a different inventory of Hawaiian that actually counts 19 instead of 13. It counts an extra consonant, and it counts twice the number of vowels, possibly distinguishing long and short vowels there maybe. You could have 5 vowels, but then if each of them can be long or short, that would give you 10. So Hawaiian, it really stands out for having a very simple sound inventory. But when it comes to the prize, there are 2. There is Rotokas and there is Piraha. So let's take a look at these languages and what they're doing. So here is Rotokas. We can get the full list right here. Let's sort consonants and vowels separately. So first we can see our vowels are our typical A, E, I, O, U. Although you see there's a little T below the E and the O, which suggests that they are slightly lower. So that's just saying that they're typically they're said with the tongue a bit lower than a typical A or O. So it's almost more like E or O, with the mouth a bit more open. So this would be like A, E, O, U. And your popular, almost every language that has 5 vowels would have these 5. Conveniently, also the same 5 letters, same 5 vowel letters that we have in the Latin alphabet, the English alphabet. And so there's your 5 vowels. And so many languages have this, this same collection. And now we have our list of consonants. Now, this is surprising here. What even is this consonant? Is that a small capital D? What does that even mean? Right, so a consonant, a small capital D. Why is that? Why is that existing? Okay, so what in fact is that? Well, here we can look at the breakdown of these features to try to figure out what is going on. We can see that it's a kind of tap. Okay, so that's a tap. So this would be and it's a sonorant. Okay, tap. So it's a little bit like an R or a D. Yeah. So, and it's coronal, made with the front of the tongue, but it is continuant. And it's a consonant made with the front. Okay, so that is a interesting sound. But let's say if we look at it here, GK, PT, DB. Yes. Okay. So I think a good way to look at this sound, it's something similar to the letter D, the sound D. It's just a little bit different, and you can see it's a very rare sound. It's only found in 7 languages. They even call it 0% because they're rounding it down to 0. 0% plus a few of the world's languages have this sound. But otherwise, your consonant, this selection of consonants is 6 of the most basic common consonants that we have. We have PB, TD, and KG. So the PB made with the lips, TD made with the front of the tongue, and KG made with the back of the tongue. And you see a slightly, modified version of B. It's like a V, but otherwise it basically follows this same set, the same 3, the PTK and the BDG set. So really, and it's only plosives. There's no S, there's no L or R, although maybe the D is a little bit like an R. There's no W or Y. So it really is a remarkably remarkably basic. It's a remarkably basic inventory, the likes of which are rarely seen. So let's take a look. We can get further information about this. So we can look up the Rotokas language here. We see that it's on this Bougainville Island, which is an island off the coast of Papua New Guinea. And this language, it's part of the country of Papua New Guinea. You can see it has different dialects. Native speakers, about 4,000 in 1981, so it might be a lot lower now. I don't know. There's even a Rotokas alphabet, which only has 12 letters. Well, that's fun. Okay, so here we have the famous inventory, the smallest inventory you can see, Central Rotokas. And here you see the plosives, PTK, and then the voice versions. These little squiggles here are representing that there is variation. So there's variation between, like you can either, in some cases it'll come out as a B, in some cases it'll come out as a V. Same with the D or the da. This is like a da, like the Spanish R, kind of a tap. And then here's the G or the R, which would be the fricative version of a G, like a R. So, and the reason these are not counted as separate sounds is because you can't actually make different words with them. It's not like you could have one word that is ba and another word that is va. They really act as the same letter. It's just that in certain situations, in certain, near certain sounds, you'll end up with one of them, and in other situations you'll end up with the other one, but you can't actually use them to make different sounds. And for that to make different words. You can't use those differences to make different words. And so those are considered to be different versions of the same basic phoneme, also called allophones. Here you see in this Aita Rotokas, well, they added some nasals as well, m, n, and ng. This is the ng sound, ng. And so they actually added even more sound. So it is the Central Rotokas that can really takes the prize. Here we have the 5 vowels, and this is your standard set, A, E, I, O, U, that so many languages have. And I actually here there's a hint of controversy in the contest, because there is some debate. You can see here that each of these vowels is written as a pair with the regular vowel or the short vowel and the long vowel. Now the question is, are these actually different sounds, or are they actually the same vowel twice? How's that for a like an academic argument, or like a some kind of obscure theory to argue about? Is this a long E, or is it just 2 short E that are together? So do you actually treat this long E as a separate sound, or is it just like E plus E, your regular short vowels, 2 of them put together? And here you can see that Aita, which is the dialect that includes MN and Eng, they don't have any distinction in the vowel length. You can see examples that it's very common for vowels to end up together. So here's a word, upia pie paivera. And so, when you only have so few sounds, I imagine that you have to make some relatively long words. Although really, it doesn't take that many sounds to get all the words you need. So if you look at let's say you have 10 sounds and you have 5 sounds in a word. I mean that is already 100,000, 10 to the power of 5, or 100,000 possible combinations. Now of course you can't line up all possible things. You can go, you can't just line up a bunch of consonants. So the number will not be quite that. But it really doesn't take too many sounds in order to get a huge number of different words. So in fact, in some ways it's surprising that more languages don't be this simple. I mean, why do you need so many more sounds? But I guess languages don't tend to be perfectly efficient. Like we tend to, like words could actually be a lot shorter than we make them, and they could have fewer sounds. But it's possible that some things in language seem to be helpful. They have some kind of redundancy so that it's even easier to tell the difference between different words. We don't just make everything like we say like cat and dog and not like cat and da. Because just like having that little sound at the end, it adds a little bit more distinctiveness to these different words. But there it is, Rotokas, and a very kind of a refreshingly simple language, or in terms of its number of sounds. But you do see, you do see an example here that it does take a fair number of letters to say a sentence like this. Osire toarei avukava iava ururu pavira to pasivera. The old woman's eyes are shut. Okay. And then we can look at the alphabet, which is simply a selection of the English alphabet, in which has selected 12. Now, why are there 12? And not 11? Well, here it looks like the R stands for that D-like sound. The V stands for that B-like sound. And otherwise, we have this S. What is the S doing there? Only occurs before E. You see. So the S, this S is an allophone of T. It's another version of T. Because you can see here that the T sound never occurs before the E vowel. Whereas the S sound always occurs before the E vowel. So these two sounds can never be made to distinguish words. They are simply two versions of the same sound that has its own version depending on the environment. So that's a perfect example of different allophones of the same phoneme. And you see the same thing with the V. It can be a B or B. This R here can be a hard D, D. It can be like a tap like da. Oh, it can actually also be an L. So the L, just like in Japanese, there's no distinction between the sort of an L-like sound and an R-like sound. It's the same thing here. So that is the wonderful world of Rotokas. But we do actually have another contender to look at, because there is another tying candidate for the least number of sounds of any language, and that is Piraha. So let's take a look at this language. Piraha. Now we have a different way of breaking things down. We're going to have only 3 vowels. And here's, typically a 3-vowel inventory would be a, I, u. Here we have a, I, o. And you see the little T there. It's actually a bit of a lowered O, so it's like a, I, o. And here we can see, we have a list of a few sounds, but I don't like how it's just written as a chart here. I would rather see this written out in a nice table. So I'm going to look up the language here. And let's see what we can find out about this language. So it's spoken in the Amazon in Brazil. Apparently a lot of controversial claims about it. That's and also a very small number of speakers. So this is a highly endangered language. Of course, you have to wonder what the age of these speakers are, to see whether this language is still healthy and continuing with new generations, or is it actually, if it's only spoken by older people, then it could be fully on the way out. But in any case, with this small number of speakers, it certainly would be endangered. Okay, so, and by the way, that's not what they call it. Piraha kind of looks like a Portuguese word, because what they call themselves and their language is Hapaichiso. Okay. So let's take a look at the famous phonemes of Piraha or Hapaichiso. So there's your three, A, I, O. And now the consonants. So we have here the PTK, just like we saw in Rotokas, but we don't have the BDG fully. We only have the B and the G. So there is no D that corresponds with T. It's like they merge together. It's almost like D and G merge together. And you also have this variation with the nasals. So B could also be M. G can also be N, which sort of corresponds with what D. N is an alveolar sound, and G is a velar sound. So N with the front of the tongue, G made with the back of the tongue, but they are merged together as a single sound. This language also has the fricative S, one of the most common fricatives, and the H sound, and this the glottal stop, which is one of that famous sound in phonetics, the sound of the throat opening and closing, that you would see in a word like uh-oh, that sort of gap in the middle of the word uh-oh is the glottal stop here. So there's your 8 consonant phonemes. You can see some words here. You have pi-ba-oi. Those are actually looking a little bit like tones. Why are we seeing those markers there? Yeah. Wow. So here we have a surprise twist because I started looking at like these example words. They have a lot of these little accents on them, which are like these tone markers, and it looks like there's only one marker, which is this acute accent here. So that would presumably denote high tone. And then the vowels without that would be low tone or default tone. So pi-ba-oi, ta-hoasi, ti, this would be he-so-bai, he-so-bai. Looks like the X corresponds to the glottal stop, I think. So i-so-bai, i-so-bai. Okay, so clearly I have a lot of work to do on my Piraha pronunciation. Probably have an easier time mastering it than the co-pronunciation with 150 phonemes, but still takes some work. Okay, so here though we can see that because there are tones, it effectively doubles the number of vowels, because each of these 3 vowels can either be regular tone or high tone. So that in effect makes, it could be considered to be, you could argue that this counts as the 12th phoneme, or you could think of it as, even you could say that this would double here. If you count that tone difference for each of the vowels, that would take you up to well, you have 8 plus 6, so 14. But usually tones would just be counted as 1. You have this one tone distinction. So that tells you that just because of those tones there, you can see that this is a common strategy that it's often argued to be the reason why tones even come to exist in the first place. Why do some languages make it a different word if you say ah versus ah? Like by making a tone difference. Why do so many languages do that? I mean, one idea is that it just helps you to get more possible sounds. If you just have a small number of sounds, then you can have a lot of words that'll start to sound the same, and it can be nice to just like get some more variation there. So that seems to be what happened here in Piraha, or I could say Hapachiso. So this language is not going to be although it's held up as being one of the contenders for least number of sounds. It looks like there is the idea of these extra tones that throws off the numbers. So it's actually going to have to be in second place, and we're going to have to give the prize to Rotokas. And Although there's also, of course, controversy there about, what actually counts. Okay, so yeah, this is a big area of debate, of course, is like, how to actually count these things. And you could have endless arguments about whether this or that sound difference counts as being a distinctive sound that can make different words and therefore a different phoneme, or just another version of the same phoneme. Because even in these languages with a small number of possible sounds, the number of sounds that come out of our mouth is still quite large. Like there's so much variation depending on where these sounds are placed in the word and like what sounds they're next to. So like we have a lot of different sounds that come out of our mouth, but they're all kind of grouped into these single phonemes when it comes to dividing different words. Like I could say, like for like dog, I could say like dog, I could say like dog, I could say like dog. I could say all these different ways of saying the word dog that you could phonetically mark them as being different, but they all fit into those phonemes d, a, g, or d, a, g, which those three phonemes together make the word dog in English. And so that's the idea of counting phonemes rather than counting every single slight difference in sound, which every language would have a large number. But yeah, regardless of who eventually wins in the debate about which language has for sure the fewest, those couple of languages really give us a picture of what is the lower bound, what is the lower extreme of what's possible for a human language as far as number of sounds. You could imagine going even further, but then things would have to get a little bit ridiculous in terms of making very, very long words in order to get enough distinctions. But yeah, I always enjoy looking at the range of what's possible in languages, and so Rotocus and Piraha really bring that out when it comes to speech sounds.